All right, what's up, everybody? We're going to add in our friends over there on Facebook and on Twitter and all over the place. Give me just a second. We'll get started. Welcome. All right, we are live. My name is Garrett Chapman, and this is the Falcons Podcast with me, your host, Garrett Chapman. Thank you for joining us here, no matter where you're joining us, no matter when you're joining us. We got a lot to get into here on the Falcons Podcast, too, because it's a bye week. We're hanging out, we're chilling out, but that doesn't mean we're taking any time off. Very excited to jump in here with you. Give me a follow while you're at it at GChapETL on Twitter. Stay fully up to date on everything coming out, all things Atlanta Falcons. And that kind of bleeds into what we're going to be talking about today. It's the 5 biggest things that the Falcons need to be thinking about here at the bye week. It's a very early bye week. Some players weren't so super thrilled that early was going to be coming in here. But we're going to talk about 5 things that they need to do here in this time off just before they get into a really critical week here coming up after that with the Buffalo Bills. And then the slog begins. 13 consecutive weeks of playing football. Technically got a little mini bye baked into there. But it is going to be a long rest of the way. So I know if you're a Falcons fan, you're very excited that this team's not going to be taking a lot of breaks between now and the very end of the season, but I know that these guys are really excited to get back at it, especially after such a big win that they had over there on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. But thank you so much jumping in here. I see some folks who are already jumping in, and thank you for however you're joining us here, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're joining us in the live on YouTube, maybe you're joining us after the fact on YouTube, or maybe you're on Twitter, maybe you're on Spotify. Thank you so much. And no matter how you're joining us, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe, make sure to drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me if there's some content you want to see. We'll try to jump into that. But again, like I mentioned, we got a big show set up for you. If you have questions, if you have comments, and you're in the live chat, make sure to jump them in. I see some people are already starting to jump in. Jaden, I see you. My man says Falcons might be cooked, honestly. I don't know why you think the Falcons are cooked, but I appreciate your opinion. If you have some more, discourse that you want, maybe some reason for why you have that rationale, I'm more than happy to address that. But I do want to talk a little bit more about what I have seen from the Atlanta Falcons here, just specifically with the bling that they're getting. Maybe not bling. Bling's not the right word, but some attention. Let's put it that way. On defense, you have Xavier Watts. He's named the NFC, the defensive rookie of the week. Xavier Watts, 22 tackles, 4 passes defended, 2 interceptions in the month of September. The only rookie with multiple interceptions in the season's first month. It's about as good as it gets right there. And this is a guy who, a lot of people like to criticize the Falcons for the decision to make the trade for James Pierce Jr., right? You jump back up into the first round and people say, oh, well, you're giving away that first round pick for next year, blah, 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 blah. Lest we forget that pick turned into Xavier Watts. Let's not forget that fact. We got 2 players out of that. One of them just won the NFC Rookie of the Month. The other one is the guy who I think has potential to be a Defensive Rookie of the Year type of candidate. And hell, Xavier Watts has a chance to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Why not? I know Abdul Carter is getting all the attention, mostly because he plays for the New York Giants. And I mean, he was the first edge rusher taken in the draft. But why can't it be one of these Atlanta Falcons? All 4 of these guys are playing at a high level. All 4 of these guys, I almost cussed there for a second. I saw, what was it? I think it was Bleacher Report or one of these other sites. They came in, and this is how I can tell that people don't watch the Atlanta Falcons and then try to comment on the Atlanta Falcons. They tried to give Jalen Walker's draft grade 4 weeks in, which admittedly, I can't fathom that idea. But they gave Jalen Walker a C. I don't know how you can do that. After watching this guy practice and play, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, whatever. That's a them problem. But back to Xavier Watts. He's the 5th Falcons rookie to win Rookie of the Month award, joining Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Deion Jones, Calvin Ridley. That's pretty good company right there. And the other big news was Bijan Robinson. I see John Robert. Yeah, let's give you a shout out, man. John Robert jumped in over there on Facebook. Bijan, NFC Offensive Player of the Month. Damn right. The guy who I fully believe he has an argument to say he's the best player in football. And I know Raheem Morris talked about it I think 2 weeks ago now at this point, but why wouldn't it be Bijan Robinson? What do these other guys have that he doesn't have? I mean, outside of just a winning record. I mean, that's really the only difference between Bijan Robinson and some of these other guys. That's it. They have wins. I mean, you talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, you talk about Derrick Henry, and you talk about Saquon Barkley. Those three guys are consistently up in that top tier alongside of Bijan Robinson. The difference is those three guys, they play on teams who are winning 12 games a year. Saquon Barkley just won a Super Bowl. He won the Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, why can't Bijan Robinson get into that? Because since he was drafted in 2023, he's been more prolific. He's had more 100-yard games than any of those guys. Comfortably so. Comfortably. He's got 4 or 5 more than Saquon Barkley, who's number 2. I mean, there's no reason why Bijan Robinson can't be considered one of the best players in the NFL. And this is the guy who, I mean, what was he, rated 61 in the NFL top 100, which admittedly I still think is absolutely asinine. I have nothing nice to say about the people who vote on that. I mean, I get it's the players. I get they're going to come out and they're going to want to put their people in, and it's just a popularity contest. And I think that's ultimately all it comes down to. I'm not all that impressed with where they have them. It's a little ridiculous to me. But ultimately, this is a spot where Bijan Robinson gets the attention that he rightfully deserves. And he is the Offensive Player of the Month. This is his first award, or first honor, I guess, first his award total. But he's the third Falcons running back to earn the Offensive Player of the Month honor. Jamal Anderson did it in 1998, and Devonta Freeman did it in 2015. So it's been a good long while since the Falcons have had a guy who's gotten this. But the dude's got 584 yards from scrimmage. He's fifth with 314 yards rushing. He's second among running backs with 270 yards receiving. He also has the 2 touchdowns, one of them rushing, one of them receiving, and really it should be a second one receiving as well, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, this is a guy who I know Mina Kimes went out and said, that this is a guy, Puka Nacua was actually the best offensive player. Nope. I'd say it's Bijan Robinson, because Puka Nacua, he gets all of his stuff down the field. That's great. He's a good player, and this isn't a knock on him whatsoever. Bijan Robinson does all of his work behind the line of scrimmage. Puka does not. And if I think that there's a running back who's on par with that, yardage-wise, give it to the running back. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes, in my opinion. That's just kind of where I fall on it. But big congratulations to Bijan Robinson and to Xavier Watts. They get the awards today. And another reason to give them a shout-out, because they've been 2 of the best players in the NFL, not just specifically at their position, but, I mean, in general. Xavier Watts should be considered probably the front runner win Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFC. So we'll go from there. But I see some people are starting to jump into the podcast, and big thank you to all of you for joining here, spending your Thursday night talking a little Falcons football with me. Very much enjoy that. Jaden, I see you got back. He said Bills, Colts, Niners, Patriots, Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, it's the NFL. It's a difficult schedule. They were always going to have a difficult schedule. And I realize I talk very quickly. I'm going to try to slow down there. Jaden, Bills, Colts, Niners, Patriots, Dolphins. I see 5 teams, 5 difficult teams, 5 good teams. I see several teams that I think the Falcons are just as good as. I mean, are the Colts that much better than the Falcons? I don't think so. They got a good start. You know who else had a good start last year? The New Orleans Saints. That doesn't mean anything to me. Daniel Jones is still their quarterback. They have a really talented running back in that backfield, man. I'll tell you that much. And we'll get into when we get into some of my bye week thoughts. We'll get into some more stuff on that, on what I think about rushing attacks and the way the Falcons need to kind of get their act together. I mean, Niners are banged up. They might be healthy by that point. Bills, you get them at home coming off of the bye. In fact, most of these teams you're going to be getting at home. The Dolphins, they're going to cook the Dolphins. If you lose to the Dolphins, I think that's a pretty bad shape. They might have a new head coach by the time you face them there. So TBD on all that stuff. And it's a week-by-week league. It really is. And if the Falcons come out and play like they did on Sunday or 2 weeks before, then I'd say that they have a pretty good shot of winning those. So Jaden, thank you. I appreciate the feedback there. But I think on a week-by-week basis, I think we have plenty to go over here for this Falcons team. Rusty Moore, he comes in and says, I'm a diehard Falcons fan, but we ain't beating Buffalo. We let Mariota bum ass score 27. what do you think about Josh Allen is about to do to us? It's going to be a difficult game. Let's put it that way. The Bills are going to be, I don't know what the line is right now. I would be surprised if it's somewhere in the range of Bills -4 or something, -3.5 or something. Because you also have to bake in the fact that the Falcons are going to be playing at home, but Falcons are coming off a bye week, and that means something in the NFL. I mean, these are guys who are going to come in, they're going to be rested, they're going to have a full extra week to game plan. Yeah, I mean, anything can happen in the NFL. You also could have said the Falcons had no chance of beating the Eagles last year. They did. You said the Falcons had no chance of beating, let's say, the Washington Commanders with a rookie quarterback making his second start. You lose that game, but you lose it in overtime. To say that there's no chance is silly, in my opinion. They absolutely have a chance. I'd say the Bills are going to be favored, and rightfully so. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. It's also the NFL. These guys, the difference between the very best and the very worst is not as much as you might think. And that's just the reality of this league. The parity in this league is pretty stark. And coming off of the bye week and playing at home, I think is going to mean something. Just it remains to be seen what it's actually going to mean. Come on through. Michael Baxter says, good evening, Garrett. Good evening, Michael. It's always great to see you, my friend. Always a good time to welcome you into the podcast, and everybody else. Thank you for joining us here. Rusty Moore Jr., Walker ain't done-ish. AC is actually generous. No, I completely and totally disagree. Jalen Walker's impact is felt beyond a box score. It's not about sacks. It's not about getting in there and getting tackles necessarily. It's him blowing up plays. It's him getting speed rushes. It's him getting into the backfield, causing some havoc and doing some things like that. He's done that. He's been good. A C, it's also way too early to give a grade. I think that was ultimately my biggest point here, Rusty. It's not that it's even that it's a C. It's the fact that you're giving a grade 4 games into a season. And I think it's tough. And I could tell that the guy had not watched enough Falcons games because of the description he gave for it. I don't think he's watched enough Falcons games to have an opinion on the matter. You know? We're going to keep on going through. 1 sack, woohoo. Again, like I said, it's not about the sacks. It's not about the stats. It's about showing progress and being effective. And he's blown up a lot of plays. And I've gone back and watched these games several times. And his impact is felt beyond a box score. Let's just be very clear about that, Rusty. He's a good player. He's a really good player. He's a very smart player. He's a very physical player. And that's a lot of those traits are going to come on throughout his career, right? These are things that he's still adjusting to the NFL. But you see the traits, you see the physicality, you see the headspace that he's in. It's very clear when you actually watch him play, right? And you dig into some of this tape and rewatch a lot of it. He's very effective. He's very, very effective. And the All-22 says that. Justin Boyd comes through, says, where's Mr. Green from the Panthers week that he was talking all that smack? Said they were going to beat New England and we'd get smashed by Washington. I know that I don't remember the guy's name. Yeah, but he's dropped in here. He was in here on Tuesday, and he was a little bit perplexed here. He gave the Falcons their due. He gave the Falcons their credit. I gave him a shout out. I do remember that, Justin. But no, the Falcons absolutely did not get bushwhacked by the Washington Commanders. The Falcons, I'd say, they had their way with the Commanders for much of that game, and I would say, if it hadn't been for a handful of explosive plays, which we'll talk about here in a little bit when we get to my bye week thoughts, the Falcons probably win this game going away. But again, every little play matters. Every single one of those plays matter. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit. Turner the Burner. Oh, yeah, Justin Boyd. Turner got robbed of MVP. Back, what was that, 2008 or so? Whatever it was. No. Michael Turner's the man. Michael Turner was one of my favorite Falcons growing up. And I'm going to age myself a little bit. I was in middle school at this point when I was watching Michael Turner. He was one of my favorites. I remember when we brought him in from San Diego. I remember going to school. I read it in the paper, and because that's how everything happened at that point. I read it in the paper, the AJC, and I remember going to school and getting so excited because I used to play with Michael Turner. I played with his Chargers every now and then on Madden, and I remember playing with Michael Turner. And I was like, this guy's the man. He's so great. He's awesome. And then I didn't expect what he was going to do. But no, Michael the Burner Turner That's a great little pull, and it always it brings a smile on my face. All right, let's kind of jump in here. If you want to come back in, if you want to drop some questions, if you want to drop your bye week thoughts, feel free to do that. I'm going to come back to your questions here in just a little bit, but I do want to start here. Just overarching goals here for the bye week. The Falcons, they are 2-2 right now. Both of those losses do come against NFC South opponents, and you got to do better than that, especially when, look, you're a better football team than the Carolina Panthers. It's just they have your number, and they whooped your tail. You know, they beat the crap out of you. So, Mr. Green or whomever, I know you're going to jump in and say something about that, but this is a Falcons team who had no business losing that game, but I think they'll end up being better for it. Help them get their heads right and do everything else, and they got to learn from that. But the other one was a game against the Buccaneers where you should have won that game. I said it then. I'll say it now. They were the better team, but it doesn't matter. You lost. Falcons won't face another NFC South opponent till Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, they're going to make a road trip down to New Orleans. But it's a big test coming out of the bye week. Like we mentioned, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. This team is as good as any in the NFL, if not better. They might be Super Bowl bound. It might be what they're doing right now, but it's the NFL, and you got to have your all your T's crossed and your I's dotted coming to this one. But as far as where they are at the bye week, I want to first talk about some goals that I have for this team. And some of this is based off of comments from Raheem Morris. Some of this is based off of my own personal thoughts and just kind of where I stand here. This is one that came from the coaching staff. This is straight from Raheem Morris. And his first big thing is to establish the pass rush. You might say, Garrett, they're doing really, really well. This group they're getting after the quarterback. They're doing lots of big stuff. And this is great. Yeah, they have a team sack rate of 8.1%. That's ninth in the NFL. You know, they started the week hot, or the season hot. They had 15 quarterback pressures in week 1. They had 16 quarterback pressures in week 2. But since then, they have just 17. You got to do a little bit better. You got to get into the backfield. Now, a lot of that has to do with game flow. I think a lot of that has to do with opportunities. Marcus Mariota and that team, that's a group that doesn't want to drop back and throw the ball. Neither do the Panthers, right? They want to turn around and they want to hand the ball off. You saw that a lot. And what that also does is it limits your second and third down opportunities. If you're allowing positive progression, you're not going to be able to have sack opportunities. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, is how I like to say it. The Falcons haven't done that in the last 2 weeks. Now, I'd say the defense has played really well, and I still say you're getting pressure into the backfield. You're doing decently enough at that. But when you are getting back there, you have to finish off your sacks. You saw that a lot with Baker Mayfield, right? This is a guy who wants to bust out of the pocket and go make plays with his legs, and the Falcons let him far too often, you know, and you have to maximize the opportunities. The 8.1 sack rate tells me that they're doing it at a decent rate when they get the opportunity to go get a sack. But still, you can always do better in this regard. But the other side of it, on offense, you just got to establish your identity. If I asked you right now what the Falcons' identity is on offense, I'd say after last week, we'd have a pretty good idea. Go back another week before that, I'd say I have no idea what this team is or what they want to do. The week before that, oh, that's a team who wants to run the ball. That's a team who wants to just turn around and hand the ball off. Go back a week before that, oh, God, this team never needs to hand the ball off. Oh, my God, what's going on? You got to be able to dictate terms. And I asked Zach Robinson about that. He didn't particularly like the question when I asked him, but he pushed back on it, and he said that they do dictate terms. And I say, well, a lot of the comments that I heard coming out of Flowery Branch are that, oh, they're playing a too high safety. Oh, they're doing this. And we're reacting to what they're showing us, and they're taking what the defense is getting us. And I think that's good to an extent. But on the other hand, you see some of the inconsistency that this offense has been. You know, I mean, there's been some inconsistency here. And I'd say that identity came out in a big way on Sunday. They ran the ball effectively when they needed to. And they started throwing the ball down the field. Those are the two things that this team needs to do very effectively. Those are two things that I'd say this team needs more than anything. You have to be able to throw the ball down the field. That's where Michael Penix is at his best. You know, and I think it's good because Sunday does remind folks of just how potent this offense can be when he's throwing the ball down the field. He hits a career high 313 yards passing. He has the pair of touchdown passes. He gets Kyle Pitts involved. He's going back to Drake London, feeding his number one. You know, and that was some of the potential that we saw from him last season. week 16 to 18, right? Now he's just got to learn to do it consistently. And that actually gets into me into my second point. It's the fact that consistency is the number one thing that this team needs, more than any one thing, right? I talked about how the offense was this and that and hot and cold or whatever. That's what Matthew Bergeron talked about. We asked him about that on Monday, and he basically said that was their number one goal throughout the course of the season. And that's what separates the good teams from the great teams. Hell, it separates the bad teams from the good teams. Being able to come out and do your job consistently and go put winning performances together, convert on your field goal attempts, make your blocks, make your tackles, finish sacks. NFL games often come down to just a handful of plays. And the Falcons, for the early parts of the season, sometimes you've done really good at that. Sometimes you haven't. They know that. They recognize that fact. And I'd say that was a theme on Monday when we talked to the coaches and the players and everybody else. They need to do it consistently. Third big thing is, where does this team stand health-wise? Of course, Caleb McGarry, that was the biggest news. He's gone for the season. But the other big news that came out that same day was that Storm Norton was going to be on the shelf. Now, by the time the Falcons come back and are playing a football game, there is a chance that he could be designated to return. I don't think that he's going to be your guy, just my opinion. I don't think he's going to be the guy coming out and potentially replacing Elijah Wilkinson when the Buffalo Bills come to town. I just don't think that's where you stand. And Elijah Wilkinson hasn't done anything enough to lose his job. I'd actually say Elijah Wilkinson's played really stinking well. He had a couple of iffy moments there against the Buccaneers, but largely he's played at a high level. And he's rightfully drawn a lot of praise. And I think the number one praise that you can give an offensive lineman or just an offensive line in general is just not talking about it. You haven't had to talk about this Falcons offensive line, and that's playing with Ryan Newsel, who, by PFF standards, put all the stock in that as you will, he's a top 10 center. Credit to Dwayne Ledford. Dwayne Ledford's done a hell of a job. But is there going to be a right tackle competition between Storm Norton and Elijah Wilkinson? I'd say there's a decent chance that happens, but Raheem Morris didn't give me a firm answer. That also tells me that Storm may not be as close to coming back as we might think. And I know that they've got a couple of weeks still. If they want to keep him on the shelf, then he can stay there. There's no reason to force him or rush him back. You got a guy who's playing at a really high level. But on that same kind of tone, Taquan Graham, TQ, he's in that same category of a guy who can be designated to return coming into the game against Buffalo. I'd say TQ actually, I would say, has a better shot of potentially getting into that, just depending on his health. We haven't heard any updates. We asked Rick Morris about all these updates. And he said basically they scheduled their health meetings and everything else for after they do press. So naturally, we're not going to get any updates on it. But as far as TQ is concerned, he would be one of two defensive linemen who are listed at over 300 pounds. Falcons are light in the shorts, man. This is not a really heavy team, just specifically on this defensive line. His physical presence, literally just his body being there, could help elevate the interior of the defensive line. Troy Anderson, he's another person who's on the PUP reserve list. He could be eligible, but another one of those players similar to what Storm Norton is. There's no reason to rush him back. Divine Diablo, he's playing at an elite level, like among the very best in the NFL right now. Raheem Morris compared to Fred Warner, a guy who's 4 All-Pros. That's what he compared Divine Diablo to. Now, I don't think Divine's going to get that level of love from the national folks, at least not yet. Similar to what I said about Bijan Robinson, the Falcons have to win. And if you're not going to win, you're not going to get that kind of attention on a personal level. But it has done. I'd say Divine Diablo has been one of the centerpieces of this defense. He's a bedrock, cornerstone type of player. And his continued development has been a reason why this Falcons team is where it is defensively. You're talking about a team who's top 10 at 14th or something in points per game, and they're second in total defense. They're second in pass defense. This is a really good unit, and a lot of that has to do with Divine Diablo and his abilities in the middle of the field. But Troy Anderson's also somebody in at least in special teams who can come back and add something. But who are you going to waive as a result? It's just kind of an interesting decision that they have to make. But that's a former second-round pick. I just have a hard time believing that he's going to be on the shelf for much longer. Excuse me. As far as AJ Terrell and Darnell Mooney, those are the two most recent injuries that I guess you could say, both suffering from hamstring injuries. He was pretty confident, just speaking, like reading through the tea leaves, that AJ Terrell is going to be coming back. I would be kind of surprised if he's not back in a Falcons jersey on Monday when the Bills come in, but I'm not confident that Darnell Mooney is going to be back. I'm just not. I don't think that he is in a spot where they're going to rush him back, especially, I mean, it's a skill guy. That's your separation guy who goes down the field. I don't think you're going to rush that guy back from a hamstring injury, but I think that does open the door potentially to some alternative decisions that you're going to have to make. And I think that's something where Terry Fontenot might have to get involved. I mean, you talk about potentially needing another wide receiver. You do. I mean, Ray McLeod's fine. I like Ray. I like Casey Washington. I think both of them are good stories, and they did well in camp, but you need some production. And as of right now, you're not getting that kind of production. Drake is your number one. Drake is going to be your do everything guy, but Kyle Pitts, I think, has found kind of a good role for himself where he's not stretching the field. He's your dump off option. He's kind of playing across the middle of the field, and you allow him to get into space and feel out a defense and do things that way. But you need a deep threat. And we'll talk about some potential options there that the Falcons might have. It's still about a month, 33 days before the NFL trade deadline hits. We'll see if they make a move. But depending on the severity of Darnell Mooney, it would not surprise me, just based off of his level of production, even when he was healthy and playing. You got to see. All right. Another thing that I have, number 4, I believe, it's solidifying the run defense. This is a group defensively that I was just giving some flowers. I mean, I was saying Divine Diablo and everybody else in this defense, they've done a good job, and they have. But one thing that's been notable, I guess the one thing that you can take a step down, is the rush defense. And I mentioned it with Taquan Graham, or at least I kind of alluded to it. You're in the middle of the pack in rush defense. You're 15th, allowing right about 109 yards per game. And we're not at that stage in the season where you start to see that separation, but I would say that a lot of this has to do with your explosive run rate. You've allowed 436 yards on the ground, and a third of that has come on 7 plays. 7. That's it. And it came to a head against the Commanders because you had 3 carries that go for 86 yards. 3 carries for 86 yards. And when you talk about Josh Allen, who's coming into town, because Marcus Mariota burned you a couple times. You look at how J.J. McCarthy, he actually got you once. Baker Mayfield, he got you. You can't let the quarterbacks get loose. And then especially with Josh freaking Allen, who's coming into town, you have to be on your game when these guys come in. You cannot allow explosives. Because like I mentioned, explosives were the reason the Commanders were even in that damn game. What do they rush for? 125 yards or something? 86 of that coming on 3 freaking carries? You have to be gap sound, especially when you have a guy like Josh Allen and James Cook. Don't forget this guy. We were giving the flowers to Bijan Robinson, and rightfully so. James Cook's got 400 yards rushing. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. And I know if you have him in fantasy football, you're over the moon about it. You're thrilled. Falcons have to be ready for this guy. This is a really potent offense. And the thing is, if you let them run the ball, they'll just run it down your throat. That's all they really want to do. And then if you get Josh Allen going, yikes. Falcons have to be on their game. The Falcons have to give themselves an opportunity. And the Falcons aren't going to be able to do that if they're letting opposition run all over you, especially a group with this many toys, this many weapons. But you got to figure that out. All right. The last big thing, and this is not necessarily the sexiest thing, but it's something that's hitting across the league, and it's something that a lot of people need to keep an eye on. And it's something that's unique specifically to this year. It's the kickoff rule. And I'd say the kickoff rule in generally speaking, just the average starting position that the Falcons have had this year, hasn't really been on their side. It's had an impact on the NFL this year. It was just a minor tweak. And I'm not going to go deep into the rules necessarily about through kick zones and where you're kicking off from or what happens, whatever. You can go look that up yourself. But the fact of the matter is 78% of kicks are being returned right now. And because of the way that it's being allowed to kick off, and it's like you can start when the ball's touched or it hits the ground, it's led to this kick, a knuckleball, I think is what they're calling it. Raheem Morris called it the knuckleball, and it's been kind of the thought around the league. It's where you put so much spin on the ball and it messes around, and then obviously, you know what moves in weird ways is that oblong shape, oblong ball. It's going to bounce in weird ways, and it's what that does is it buys a little bit of extra time here for your for the coverage unit to get down the field, and it's burned the Falcons a couple times. In fact, the biggest one where it burned them was that game against the Panthers. Their average starting field position came on their 18-yard line. I know I said it when I started this point. It's not the sexiest thing, but good God almighty, if you're starting every drive at your 18-yard line, no wonder you're struggling. You're backed up into the shadow of your own end zone every dadgum time you touch the ball. And then you have to drive the whole length of the field. So you have a defense who's largely not creating turnovers in that game, specifically in that game. And then on offense, you have to drive the length of the field. Of course you're going to lose games. Of course you're not going to have a lot of success in that one. You know, and then what it also does is if you have a 3-and-out, heaven forbid, you pump the ball back and they get great starting field position in their own right. You know, and it's, again, not the sexiest thing to talk about, but field position and the hidden yards within it are critical. And to this point in the season, it's kind of been hit and miss with the Falcons, you know? And I'd say a lot of that has to do with the health of Jamal Agnew. And I was admittedly critical of Jamal Agnew at the beginning of the season or during training camp. I didn't think that he was going to have a roster spot. I thought it was kind of silly that you were going to have this guy who doesn't play wide receiver at all. He's listed as a wide receiver, but he doesn't play. I mean, watching him line up and take snaps, didn't do it. You know, he has one job and one job only, right? It's to return kicks. And then he was hurt, so he wasn't able to do it. But when you look at the importance of what this team is without him, they're averaging 20 yards per return when he's not on the field. You know, but when he is on the field, that number goes up to 25-ish yards. You know, and that's also something where he was coming back from an injury at some of those points, and that's extra 5 yards actually matters, and it adds up over the course of a season. That's a lot. That's a lot. You know, and I mean, that's something where the Falcons have to be better. And they did a lot better against the Commanders. They were actually fielding these kicks, and lo and behold, it's because Jamal Agnew was back and he was the guy returning. You know, but they've got to figure all that stuff out. They've got to be more effective with it. They have to be more consistent. There's that word again. Consistent. Got to be more consistent. And that's really where this Falcons team comes. But they sit at 2-2. They're at 2-2, and there's a reason they're at 2-2. There's ebbs and flows to an NFL season. But like my friend earlier mentioned, who was it? I want to give you a shout out. Jaden. Like Jaden mentioned earlier, Falcons have a tough stretch coming up. And you don't get back into you just don't get back into conference play until into Thanksgiving. But the Falcons have an opportunity. They have to keep themselves in arm's length, and they have to win as many games as possible. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but getting this early bye, I think it does afford you some opportunities here as you ramp up and kind of get into this month. Maybe you can jump the Bills. Maybe. We'll see. All right. I'm going to keep jumping in here. I'm going to take your comments too. If you're over on Twitter, I see some folks over there. I see some folks on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm going to try to jump in and grab as many comments as you can. And then I'm going to finish off with one more point before we get out of here. But let's see. John Robert, doesn't the defense have 10 sacks? Yeah, they've got a fair number. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it's 11 sacks or something this year. Again, the separation is something that happens over the course of the season. And speaking of kind of making it a point of emphasis, and maybe there's more to it than this, but when the Falcons hit their bye week last fall, this is a group that had 10 sacks on the season. And they had 6 games left. They had 21 sacks after that. 21 sacks. Maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not saying that they're going to come out and double their sacks again, but wouldn't that be nice? But they're going to make an emphasis on finishing up sacks and finishing things out. Cody Duchette, excuse me, Facebook over there. Thank you for the question. If we stop Allen, we win. Easier said than done, my friend. There's a reason he's the reigning NFL MVP. He's really damn good. And if it were that simple, I think a lot more teams would do it. But yes, to your point, yeah, sure. If you do stop him, they will have a hard time of beating you. I mean, you can say that about any position or any team, really. You stop Jaden Daniels and you're going to beat him. You stop Marcus Mariota, I guess would be the better example because he was the starting quarterback. I digress. Carrie, she does a great job over on Twitter. Give her a follow on Twitter. She's great. Big Falcons fan. To Rusty's point, I would say we do have a chance, and I would say that the Falcons often win the games you don't expect them to, and they lose the ones that should be gimme games. So I believe we do have a chance. I do believe we have a chance. Absolutely. It's the NFL. You have a chance in every single damn game you play. You also have a chance to lose every game you play, Carrie. I mean, this is one of those things. That's why the Falcons lost they lost the Saints last year. It's a reason I have every team when they play divisional opponents. You have to do it twice a year. And when I'm prognosticating and I'm predicting a schedule, I have them winning one and losing one. They always split, in my opinion. That means the Falcons are going to get the Buccaneers on the road and they're going to win that game. If I was predicting it, same thing could be said about the New Orleans Saints. Heaven forbid. I mean, obviously you want the Falcons to go in and sweep that team, but that's just the way the NFL. You play a team twice, and odds are it's difficult to beat them twice. You know, that's just how it works out. But that's true for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, when you play the Miami Dolphins, when you play the Buffalo Bills, you absolutely could beat the Bills and lose to the Dolphins. It's just the nature of the league. This is what it is. The difference between the best teams and really every team is minute. It's tiny. It's small. It's really itty bitty. And sometimes it's hard to really rationalize that and explain it. But keep on going through. Bills have 2 coming back from suspension. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not fully up to date on them yet. I haven't started my scouting report, John Robert, but make sure to tune in on Tuesday. I'm going to have some more on that, especially on Thursday. We're going to dig in. So 1 week from today, make sure to set your reminder. Every single Tuesday and Thursday, we do this podcast. John Robert, thank you for the comment. I'll go check that out. I'm not fully up to date on everything with them yet. I will be next week, and that's when I'm going to be fully ready to go. Justin Boyd over on YouTube says we get Terrell back. I'm confident that they will. I'm confident because it was to the point where Raheem Morris, I asked him the question. I asked him, what's the status of AJ Terrell? How's he doing? He actually jumped back in because I asked him about Darnell Mooney in the same question. He came back around and he said, actually, I want to say I'm confident that we get AJ Terrell. That tells me AJ Terrell is probably going to be lining up and taking snaps on Monday. Kerry comes back, says Walker has been great in run defense. You have to use your eyes to see the difference he is making, giving him a C to me. C to me means that they just looked at the stats and didn't actually watch Falcons games. Yes, exactly right, Kerry. That was my exact point. He's a tremendous run defender. He's fantastic in run defense. And it's something that you got to watch the damn games. You got to watch the football games. And if anybody's sitting there box score surfing, it's not the way that you need to be evaluating rookies, especially rookies. Anybody, really. I mean, you could see the impact that different players have on their team, and it's not always showing up at a box score. It's just the way it is, you know? And whoever that Bleacher Report writer was, I don't trust their opinion because clearly they weren't watching Jalen Walker. Keep on rolling through. Justin Boyd says, facts, stats ain't everything. You are exactly right. Stats are not everything. To quote Raheem Morris, he says, stats are for losers. I say that at my own risk. Cody Duchette says, Walker equals Hall of Fame. Slow your roll, my man. From your mouth to God's ear. And hopefully he does that entire Hall of Fame career here at Atlanta. So I would like to think that, but long way to go. Probably another 15 years before we can even start breathing that kind of conversation. At least a decade, right? Let's give it a little bit of time. I'm excited about Jalen Walker. I'm as excited as a lot of people are, but let's just hope he has a really good season this year, and we'll go from there. Keep on rolling through. Come on. Eddie Edwards says, if the Falcons win over the Bills, they can go on a 5-game run. Sure. I'd say the Falcons have as good a shot to do that as anybody. I mean, this is a team who it's young, admittedly. And even when I say they're young, it's not really a young team. It's just that it's a mixture of old and young players. I was talking to Turin Taryn, with the Falcons. She's at Falcons.com. She's with the digital side. And she made a great point, and she was reading something, and it was, I think it was Axios, I want to say. And we were just up at Flowery Branch, and she said that this is actually one of the oldest teams in the NFL. They have some of the most 30-something-year-old players across the league, which everyone talks about this team being super young. And it's mostly because this team has several young contributors that you're leaning on, but they're also scattered beyond it, like David Onyematis, Leonard Floyd, Kirk Cousins. Yes, he still matters. You have lots of guys like that. And until they, and then you're going to see some of these younger guys kind of factor up. But the point of what I'm saying is when you have a younger team, this is why I said consistency was so important. You have the ebbs and flows, and you ride the wave of a young player. It's why you have to be willing to accept the mistakes of a young quarterback and not put too much on him and give him too much grief for making mistakes. And you're going to have the ebbs and flows from quarter to quarter, not even just game to game, right? And so, yeah, I think they can absolutely go on a 5-week run. And I think that this team coming off of week 2, they're feeling themselves. So until they start building some of that consistency, I think they're capable of doing that. I'm not going to predict them to do that because I think that there's just too much this right now. Now, if you can get this, we might be talking a little bit differently, because that's what the great teams do. That's what the Vikings did last year. That's what the Lions did last year. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles did last year. A lot of this. They weren't at their best early in the season. They got better as the season went along. And I would say that the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that played the Falcons in week 2, would have gotten bull rushed by that Eagles team that finished the season. That's how it should be. Falcons aren't there yet. I think they can potentially get there. We'll see. They have to prove it. So to answer your question, yes, theoretically they are capable of doing it because you're getting more into the underbelly potentially of your season after you get through these next couple of weeks. There's a chance. You just got to do it consistently. And until they prove that, welcome to the NFL. It's tough. Carrie over there on YouTube. Hi, Garrett. I was commenting on Twitter. Did the comments come through on here? Hello, Carrie. Yes, they come through both ways. I was just kind of rolling through something. And I wasn't looking at the comments. So, Carrie, welcome on YouTube. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Michael Ronquillo, he comes through. He says, give me a red and black heart, my man. Always great to see you, my man. Stephen B says, do people realize the idea of Pitts playing on a 1-year contract is silly talk? It is and it isn't. I mean, I don't think he's going to sign a 1-year contract, but Falcons damn well could franchise tag him. We talked about that on Tuesday. I said, this version of Kyle Pitts is the best version of Kyle Pitts that we've seen since his rookie year. And I don't think we're getting back to that rookie year. Like the 1,000-yard season, I think is great. I hope that he can get back to it. I'm not going to hold my breath, but he's making an impact. And I think he's doing a really good job. When over half of your receptions are going for first downs, that's good. And I'm going to maintain that. Even if you give me 800 yards, if you give me 700 yards, something like that. If I told you, I mean, hell, we talked about it before the season, like what statistical types of seasons these guys would want to have, going back to stats now, but we're talking about stats right when I told you stats were for losers. But when I told you that this is a guy who, if he's giving you 800 yards, you'd have taken that every single year, every single time. Can he do it? See, but as far as his 1-year contract, no, he's not going to sign a 1-year contract unless it's somewhere else. If that's all he gets, if he goes out on the market and that's all he gets, it's not going to be all he gets. He has way too much potential, and the tangible traits that he has are more than enough to generate some interest from folks. So I'd say that no, he's not going to sign a 1-year contract. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. If he stays here in Atlanta, I anticipate a franchise tag. That's just kind of where I stand on it. And at that point, it's not really up to you. Just the nature of the NFL. All right, Miss Kiera Possible on YouTube. In reality, we only let them score 20. The first touchdown they made doesn't count because their 4th and goal Debo catch was out of bounds. I saw it in real life. Well, they didn't. They review every single touchdown reception, every score. So it would have passed that. I saw it in real life too. I didn't see out of bounds play. And look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hit me up on Twitter. Send it to me. Just at me at GChapATL and show me. But Kiara, I appreciate the comment. Yeah, I mean, it's 20 points. And then if you want to say they gave up the 3 at the very end so that they could attempt the onside kick, fine, whatever. But really, I go back to the point that you were allowing too many explosive runs. And if you don't allow those explosive runs, I'd say that you dominate them in that game. But you did. And that's a reality that you have to accept and live with. Thank you for the comment, Kiera. Keith Robbins, when did this podcast start? I always need more Falcons talk. It started right at the beginning of August. So right there with training camp. That's when I kind of dove in. And that's actually when I started with Falcons on SI. And Scott said, I have a podcast. And I said, let me at it. And I just wanted to jump in and talk, because I still do my stuff over there at Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. And I just like talking Falcons, and it's a joy. And this is it's a pleasure. So I get to jump on and do a podcast with you guys every single Tuesday and Thursday at 6:00. Last week we did one on Friday, and that was kind of fun. I might consider doing something like that. Hell, I might consider doing one on Sunday. Depends. I mean, if we keep getting folks and jumping in here and having a great show, and maybe we can. Maybe we can do pregame thoughts. We'll see. Thank you, Keith. But I appreciate you jumping in over there on Facebook. Keep on going through. Michael Ronquillo says, run the rock with Bijan Robinson. Yeah, I think that'd be wonderful. I mean, there's a reason he's your offensive player of the week or player of the month. Guy's damn good. He's damn good. And that's why he's number 1 in the NFL in terms of scrimmage yards. Yeah, give that guy the rock. I had a discussion with somebody on Twitter who said it was silly that he was getting the ball too much. I don't have any idea how you could be giving Bijan Robinson the ball too much. Now I understand not wanting to bury the guy, not wanting to overwork him to the point where you're risking injury or he wears out by the end of the season and whatever. That's why you have a guy like Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier is at his best when this team is playing with a lead and you can turn around, hand it off, and he just bulldozes people. Kind of what we saw against the Washington Commanders. Keith Robbins says, I think 6:00. That's when we start every single Tuesday and Thursday at 6:00. Stephen B says, not a journalist job to make Zach feel happy. No, yeah, we're coming back through. Yeah, because that's when I was talking about Zach Robinson. So I see where I am kind of in the comments. It's just one of the weird things about when I'm not looking at the comments. I'm not actively looking at them when I'm on my spiel because I don't want to get too distracted. But no, it is not my job to make Zach Robinson happy or comfortable or whatever. It's my job to ask questions. And I asked him about basically the offense being predictable. And he's not going to get that question next week because the offense looked pretty damn good against the Washington Commanders. And they kind of got back to some of that. They just need to get to that level of consistency. And I might ask him about that. How do they find that consistency? But I mean, hell, Matthew Bergeron was pretty blunt. He said, we're not where we need to be because we're not doing it every week. And until you could do it every week and establish your own mentality or your own tempo, dictate the tempo, that is at that point, it's a moot point. So you got to do it consistently. Keep on rolling through. I'll keep on rolling through. I got more questions. Kiara Possible comes back. Hope AJ is healthy and our receivers. I agree. I really hope so. This team needs Darnell Mooney to get back and to be a consistent threat for this team. You really need it. Carrie comes through, says credit to Ledford and Ollie. They both have our guys in the trenches playing at a high level. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. What was the number one thing that every football team needs? Effective trench play. I'd say trench play is second only to the quarterback position in terms of an importance for a football team. If you're not doing it consistently in the trenches, you're often losing the game. And Nate Ollie has been a pleasant surprise. I think he is the perfect defensive line coach for this system with Jeff Ulbrich and this attack style. He's a beast. I really like him. And I like the energy that he attacks with and the energy that he brings these players. They feed off of it. And you can see it, and I think they're having fun. I don't know if you guys actually went through, and if you go check out the Falcons YouTube, you can see some of the mic'd up. These guys are having fun. Brandon Dorlus and Zach Harrison and Ruka Roro and all these guys. They're enjoying themselves. And you know what the number one sign of a team who's doing well and is like some health in that room? Fun, and that's one where they're not getting too worked. They're not getting run into the ground or anything. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of energy. And I think that energy is fed off of from Nate Ollie. And I think it comes from him, but Dwayne Ledford, I mean, I throw this guy as many flowers as you can. He's the run game coordinator. He designs all these plays. There's a reason the Falcons have as much success as they do on the ground. TQ not on the 53 though, I think. No, he's not. He's on the injured reserve. So he's not on the 53-man roster. So you would have to clear a roster spot. Would probably be like a Lakill London or something like that. And you'd cut him and bring him back on your practice squad and make another move there. But at that point, you might cut one of the two kickers that you have on your practice squad, just the nature of doing business. But I mean, if Parker Romo is going to be your starting kicker, then you don't need three kickers on your roster, right? One of them obviously on your active roster, but then Lenny Krieg, you're not going to cut Lenny Krieg. He's a developmental prospect. And he actually allows you to have that 17th spot, but rolling through. Stephen B comes through, says Detroit was great during the regular season in 2024. Washington didn't care what they were in the regular season. But that was a Detroit team who I'd say my point with that is that they consistently were good. That was my point. Didn't matter who got hurt in the regular season and everything else. They just kept rolling, right? They had the number 1 seed. They took down the Vikings in that incredible Week 18 showdown. One of the most exciting regular season games that I can remember is that Vikings Lions game from last year. Awesome. But you mentioned Washington not caring about it. It's also because a lot of those injuries, I feel like, caught up with them in the end. They just were not healthy on defense. I mean, they lost 4, 5, 6 starters or something at that point. And it's not an excuse. You win with the guys you have. And if you don't win, you don't win. But no, I mean, your point is received. I know what you're saying. And sometimes it's about finding that gear late in the season. That's what Washington did. Washington got better as the season went along. And my point is that it was consistent across teams who make the playoffs. They consistently win. But more importantly, even if they lose, you're playing at that consistent level and you're seeing the consistent improvement week over week over week. I mean, Raheem Morris called like embracing the suck. No. That was Dan Quinn. Excuse me. Embrace the suck that was Dan Quinn. I just did a Quinnism. Excuse me for that. But no, he said, what was it? I wrote it down somewhere. It doesn't matter. The whole point is you have to embrace the mundane. No, embrace the mundane. That's what he said. Another very similar to what Dan Quinn was. But it's a very Quinn-like ism, I guess you could say. But no, it's just finding your way down throughout the course of the season and getting that steady week over week improvement. That's just what they got to do. That's what they have to continue doing. Keith Robbins says, is it me or does Alford just seem lost most of the time? I think D. Alford gets more hate, mostly unnecessary hate, than anybody on this Falcons roster. And I sometimes get it. Most of the time I don't. He got burned a couple times by Deebo Samuel. He did. Deebo Samuel is one of the best NFL wide receivers. He is. He got beat. And I also don't think that D. Alford had a lot of business covering Deebo in that game, but he got beat a couple of times. But before that, I didn't hear a lot of criticism of D. Alford. It's because he was playing really freaking well. He gets a lot of hate. And most of it is unsubstantiated and unnecessary. But no, I disagree. He's not lost. He just got beat a couple of times. But AJ Terrell is going to be coming back, and Terrell, in a perfect world, is not coming off the field. So it's a moot point anyway. Oh, keep on. Troy Green says, so how live are we? We're very live, 100% live. I love doing live. I do live radio all the time. It's just enjoyable. We're having fun. 1 hour delay. Keep on going through. All right. Keep on coming through. Okay. Last big thing here for the show, and then I might take a couple more comments there at the end. It's the fact that the Falcons are in a spot where they are in need of a wide receiver. See, this is why I get distracted by comments. That's why I got to put the comments away. Michael Ronquillo says, Garrett Chapman, which is the second hardest position to play behind quarterback in the NFL? It's corner. Michael Ronquillo. I'll say cornerback is the second most difficult position to play in the NFL. That's just my thought on the matter. They get a lot of criticism. They're isolated. They're stuck on an island, and they're often judged by just a handful of plays a game. I mean, you're running a lot of cardio out there, and you're not judged for anything that you do on the good plays. Generally, unless it's an interception or a pass defended, it's difficult, and you're reacting constantly, and you're playing probably the best athlete on the team, among one of the best athletes on the team, I guess you could say. It could be a big guy, it could be a fast guy, and you got to be ready for all of it, right? So corner, boundary corner specifically, is the second most difficult position to play. Third, tight end. Maybe. I think tight end is one of the more difficult positions, because you have to be able to do everything. If you got, Michael, I think it looks like you're kind of agreeing. You said cornerback. Yep. Second hardest, but I completely agree. Yeah. Corner is exceedingly difficult, and they get a lot of criticism, but not a lot of positive things, not a lot of positive things are said about him unless you're getting interceptions. And even then you have guys like, what's his face over there, and what Diggs, his brother, in Dallas, who Trevon Diggs gives up massive amounts of yards. But he gets a big old fat contract, and he's in all pro discussions and Pro Bowls because he gets interceptions. Is he actually a good cornerback, or does he just get interceptions? He sells his soul to go get interceptions. I'd rather have an AJ Terrell who doesn't get interceptions, but doesn't allow a lot of yards. That's just where I stand on it. But it is what it is. We'll keep on rolling through. Falcons, last big thing. Falcons need a wide receiver too. It's uncomfortable to say, but at this point, Darnell Mooney ain't it. Darnell Mooney has not been it. That doesn't mean that he can't be the guy. I think the Falcons are banking on him turning it around and being the guy eventually when it's all said and done. But this guy has the highest drop rate in the NFL. It's 25%. He's catching he's getting half of his targets. This team lacks a deep threat. They're not the same if you don't have a guy who's getting down the field. And on top of the fact that he hasn't been good when he's playing, he missed the entire summer during training camp because of a shoulder injury. And then now he's on the shelf again. And there's no telling when he's coming back because hamstrings are finicky. Fickle things, man. And if you aren't 100%, you can re-injure that thing just like that. It only takes a second, right? The hamstring is one of those types of positions. And so he's on the shelf for the foreseeable future. And this team needs a reliable number two. Assuming it's not Mooney, who's it going to be? Now, Casey Washington, Ray McLeod, those are two guys who are on the roster right now, haven't stepped up in the way that you want them to. I think it's borderline irresponsible to expect that those two guys are going to step in and be the guy that Darnell Mooney is. And that's not slighting them. It's not a knock on those guys necessarily, but it's also just kind of a reality. Right? Casey Washington's a good player, but he's also a 6th-round pick. He was a practice squad player last year. I think he's got a firm role on this team. Rary's got a firm role on this team. He's your slot guy. He's good in that kind of flanker type of position. But to expect him to come and kind of step up into that role, I don't think is the right thing to do. And then on top of that, I talked about Kyle Pitts. I said on Tuesday how much I believe in Kyle Pitts and how he's kind of changed my mind in terms of him stepping in and doing a really good job and finding a role on this team. But he's not a deep threat. That's just not what he's doing. He's at his best when he's not being thrown the ball down the field to. He's finding space about 5 yards deep. That's what his average air yards per reception is, about 5.8, 5.9, right? That's where he's best. Find space across the middle of the field and then get up and turn field, right? Turn up field, make some guys miss, use some of that damn size and speed and bowl some folks over, right? But who's your speed guy? Who's your deep threat? It's supposed to be Darnell Mooney, but he's not here. And there's no telling when he's going to be here. So if you're going to make a trade, what are you going to trade? Yeah, it's probably not another player. I know I've seen some people floating ideas of like Tyler Algier. This team does not need to trade Tyler Algier. He's far more meaningful to this team right now than a 4th round, 5th round pick, right? But you have a 2nd round pick, you have a 3rd round pick, you have a 4th round pick. You don't have a 5th, you don't have a 1st, you also have a 6th and a 7th, right? Depends on what you want, right? If you want to go get a Josh Downs, it's a guy who is a former 3rd round pick. He has 14 receptions this year, 121 yards. He's an Atlanta guy. He's from the metro Atlanta area, Georgia. I don't know where exactly he's from, but he's from Georgia. And he went up, played at North Carolina, had a pretty good career. He's not very big necessarily. So he's not necessarily my first choice in this matter. He'd probably be on your cheaper option. Devontae Wicks, just butchered his name. Just blew through that. 10 receptions for 114 yards this year. He actually has good size, coming in at 6'1". Wicks, I mean, he's top 15 in terms of separation. He plays up there with Green Bay. He probably cost a fourth-ish, maybe a 6th-round pick. You might be able to get him for that. Jalen Naylor, top 5 in separation. He's up there in Minnesota. His nickname is Speedy. He has 100 yards on the season, 8-ish or so receptions. Maybe he can come in and be that guy. But Jacoby Myers is one that I saw floated and one that I kind of think would make a lot of sense. He's 28 years old. He's in the final year of his contract. He's set to make $10 million. So I think you'd have to kind of move some money around to make that work. But you talk about a guy who I think makes a lot of sense as a number 2. That's kind of Jacoby Myers. 33 targets this year, 21 catches, 258 yards. He's already asked for a trade. He's already asked out. But you slot him into this team. That makes sense. And how much is it really going to cost you? I'd say he's in the last year of his deal, maybe at most a 3rd-round pick. I don't think I want to give up a 3rd-round pick necessarily. Maybe a 4th. That might be enough. I mean, hell, it's his contract year, and if you delay it any longer, you might be able to get him for a 6th. But we'll see. If things go south over there in Las Vegas, you never know. He might start causing a stink. But all I know for sure is that this Falcons team, they need a wide receiver too. Whether it's Darnell Mooney or somebody else, they have to figure that out. All right. I see some other folks had some other comments. I'm going to answer a few more questions and then we'll call it evening. So you guys can go enjoy your Thursday night. We got Thursday night football on our screen, so we got to get ready for that. Carrie over on Twitter comes through, says, I thought that D filled in well in the Vikings game. I don't think he allowed a single reception in that game. And in the Carolina game, I think he allowed 1 reception in that game. But again, played really well. Did have a bad game against Washington. Yes, he did. I was confused why he was on Deebo Samuel, though. That's just unfair, but thankfully AJ is back soon. Completely agree. Carrie, completely agree. Good take. I appreciate you. And again, she does a great job over there on Twitter. Big shout out to Carrie. Stephen B says, not sure it's possible to be an NFL offensive tackle without being highly unusual. Yeah, you're right. You talk about most difficult positions. Offensive tackle is absolutely one of those positions. Offensive line is just so brutal. And all these positions are difficult. Every single position in the NFL is difficult. That's where I think it's always funny, unless you're talking about quarterback, which quarterback across all sports is in a league of its own. There's nobody in sports, no matter the sport, that is under more pressure than a starting quarterback in the NFL. Nobody's asked to do more. Nobody's critiqued less or critiqued more. And that's just the nature of the position. These guys know what they're signing up for. But outside of that, you're playing a professional sport. Every position is going to be extremely difficult, right? You can say it about, but in terms of just dropping into the bucket and being like, I can come out and I can play at a high level, wide receiver, I'd say is probably the only easy position you could play. But again, transitions from years 1 to 2 to 3. And as you get in, there's a reason these guys get better as the years go on. All these positions are difficult. Michael Ronquillo says, great show, Garrett Chapman. And always great to hear from you talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Michael, appreciate you, man. I do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Should Scott's podcast include AI-enhanced forehead advertisements? I'm going to leave that one alone, and I'm going to end on that one, Steven. Appreciate all of you great folks. Speaking of Scott, he'll be back 8:30 on, or I guess, Monday. So he'll be back coming in next week. Big thank you to that. Nick and Scott will be back. But make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe just to stay up to date on everything that we got coming out with this Atlanta Falcons team. Very exciting. Lots of news I feel like is going to be coming up. But give me a follow at GChapATL over there on Twitter. That's the best way to stay up to date on everything. But you can just like and follow this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for jumping in. My name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. Till we talk again soon. Be kind to one another and go Falcons.